Hi there. Welcome to Stories, a podcast by Acadium where we focus on the stories of our incredible users. People come to Acadium for a few different reasons. They might be looking to build new skills, whether that's for a career change or just to deepen their craft, or they might be looking to get some eager extra hands on their project or business. In any case, people come to Acadium to grow, and we find that our users often have amazing stories to tell about their journeys, and we're here to share them. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Of course, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Whereabouts are you located today?
I'm in Killeen, Texas.
Gotcha. And how are things holding up there? I know we sort of talked about it briefly the other day on the phone, but for the folks that don't know, what stage are you guys in Texas?
Technically, I believe we're supposed to be in stage 3, but we actually just hit over 5,000 cases in one day yesterday. I think it was like 5,400. So it's, in my opinion, it's still worse than when we started. But, now we're kind of pushing for everything to be open. And in my opinion, I don't think it's a very good idea, but that's neither here nor there.
Staying put for the time being.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I hope it shapes up soon. We just moved into phase 2 here in Toronto, so I can get my hair cut finally, which would be nice. But on to the important stuff. So I think you're a really interesting guy for a few reasons, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about a number of different things. One of the things that stands out to me is your career path so far. You went to UCLA and then you immediately became an entrepreneur. I think that says a lot. I'd be curious to start at the university experience. So what did you study? How did that experience shape you? And then maybe we can get into how you decided right after school that you were just going to go and start your own thing.
Sure, absolutely. So it started, I've always had a passion for how things are put together, construction, things like that. So for me, I started in architecture, just because that's kind of always been a passion of mine. And I got about halfway through my degree and I noticed that one of the departments had like almost like a display case for student work. And I noticed some of the projects that the students were doing. And it was more about like sustainable design and clothing, sustainable materials. And I used to see it almost every day walking past. And eventually it piqued my interest because I think that in today's society, we have this interesting anomaly with the size of someone's clothes and kind of predefining them into a group. So for me, I went and talked to the advisor, and ended up dual majoring in architecture and fashion studies. Shortly after I graduated in 2015, I had a lot of friends that would go to the malls or go to shopping stores and things like that, and that kind of were outside the normal size 0 that we determine as a society is, what women should aspire to. And when they would go into these stores, it was either the clothes their size they either didn't have, or they were kind of shoved into the back corner away from everybody else. And it was never really, put on display. It was never really like, you can be a size 16 and still be beautiful, because you open a tabloid magazine at that time and it was all, these size 0 models that have been retouched, and, that can have a lot of psychological damage on humans. And I have a big problem with that because I have a lot of friends that exist in a space where society tells them you aren't beautiful because you don't fit this model. So I started my company, Sherman Designs, back in 2016 as a way of kind of fixing and redefining what beauty is and trying to bring a light to people that maybe felt like they were exiled or pushed outside. So that's kind of where it started. And
So
since then,
one thing that's interesting, sorry to interrupt. I want to stress this point a little bit because I think it's an important one. Like, you saw this problem and it bugged you. I think most people wouldn't do anything about it. It might just bug them, and maybe they'd start talking about it. But to say I'm going to go and start a business that tries to solve this problem, it takes something more than just being a bit bothered. So I don't know what it is for you. What do you think it might be? Was it an experience that you had? How would you describe the tipping point?
Yeah, I think it's because I saw firsthand how it affected my friends. Without them really saying, this hurts me, I could see it on their face. When I would go into a store as a man, I can go into a store and say that I'm a size 18 pant, and generally that size is going to carry through no matter what store I go to. So it's much easier for me to find clothing that fits me. But when I would go with friends and they would ask for a size, especially females, the female size really is not predefined. So a size 16 at one store could be way different at another store. So when I would go in and my friends would ask for a size, like I said, they'd be pushed to the back corner, which just further, you could read it on their face. Like, I now feel inferior to everybody else coming in this store because now I'm pushed to a dark corner in the back of the store where none of the clothes make me feel confident. And so, and just reading, just seeing society and having that firsthand look at how it really does impact someone's confidence level, someone's psychology, without them having to say, this affects me. So I think that's really what kind of drove me to try to solve that problem.
So what does a good outcome look like for you, for your company?
For me, if we could just do away with the term plus size, that's a start. For me, I would love to normalize that every size is beautiful, regardless of what that number is. Because I think that if you are confident in yourself, if you have the awareness to know that I can walk in a room, regardless if I'm a size 4 or a size 12, and I can command that space, that's ultimately what I want. Because I think that the clothes that you wear say a lot about yourself, and that's the first impact that you have on people. Without you having to say hello, without you having to say hi. And so if you can walk into a room wearing clothes that allow you to put that best foot forward off the get-go, the rest of it's going to follow. But if you walk into a room wearing clothing that is either too big, too small, doesn't fit right, you're going to impact differently if you walk in with a sweatshirt and hiding your face than you are with, say a dress that really makes you feel bomb, makes you feel confident, and you're going to walk into that space and it's night and day, and I've seen it. I've seen that difference.
So how are you trying to help people? Are you making clothes? Is it education? What's the approach that you're taking to try to get that outcome?
Yeah, so I do everything from design to manufacturing. So essentially someone would come to me with a problem and say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of style. Or sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just come to me and they say, I'm a size 12. I want something that I can feel confident in, and that's where it starts. So, then it's to the drawing board. It's creating sketches, it's creating textile samples, it's creating everything. And then reapproaching that client and coming to some sort of conclusion as to really what they're looking for. And then once I reach that, it's making the samples, it's making the garments themselves. And so everything from creating the templates that ultimately go into the sewing machine, that are cut out by hand, constructed by myself, and then ultimately shipped out to whomever they need to go to. And it's really worked well. I've done everything from sports team t-shirts to did some work on weddings, did some work on quinceañeras, all sorts of stuff. And so because there's that need, and other than markets like Charlotte Russe or markets that are designated as these stores, there's really not much out there, and designers are so afraid to tackle that issue. It's multi-billion-dollar we're talking about. The last time I looked, the plus size market is over $2.4 billion. But people are so afraid to tackle that for some reason. And I think it's just because it's so intimidating, because you really don't know where to start unless you start with the bare roots of getting to know your clientele, getting to know them on a personal level, on a professional level, getting to know what they need. And, for me, it's about customizing that experience. And so I think that's really kind of what set me apart from the rest of the market, in my opinion, and from what I've heard.
So you started this thing right out of school, big, like you say, intimidating problem for a lot of people. You didn't get a normal job when you left school, so you've been learning as you go. We'll talk about Acadium in a bit, but outside of that, and maybe before it existed, what was your process for realizing that maybe you've got some challenge that you have to overcome, something that you have to learn? What was your process for learning that thing?
Yeah, early on, it was more just trying to self-teach myself. I read a lot of books. I talked with a lot of mentors that I had throughout my college experience. Not necessarily in the fashion industry. They were more business investors. They were more, they had a strong knowledge about how to set up a business plan, how to go about designating what kind of business I was going to be, the licensing required, things like that. And so early on, I walked out of college, knew the problem, but I had no idea what I needed to do to make that a reality. So for the first, probably about roughly about the first year, was nothing but just taking notes, watching videos, recording, meetings with my mentors, with people in the industry and outside of it. Just trying to absorb like a sponge as much information as I could. And then, after that, I just had to take that leap, which was probably, bar none, probably the scariest and most intimidating experience of my life. Because for me, fresh out of college, people didn't take me seriously because, they looked at me as just another college kid with this piece of paper that says that you know something, but what are you bringing to the table? And so, it was a long, many sleepless nights, many days of bawling my eyes out, because it was just, a lot of frustration, a lot of, why can't this just happen? Why can't I just get a break? But it was really just grinding it out. I did a lot of, serving jobs, a lot of retail jobs, things like that. just to try to grow the initial capital for that. And anybody who's done retail or food service knows that it's not the most glamorous job in the world. But I kept at the forefront what my goal was at the end. And, through all that, I was able to create this product at the end that was an extension of myself. And so it has my name on it. It has my face to it. And that made the whole process worth it, because how many business owners can say that they're in their 20s and they've now, fresh out of college, created this baby that I've watched grow from infancy, so to speak, to being able to stand on its own 2 feet, and it's amazing. It's great,
I think that I've sort of already asked the question, but I think that this idea is so hard for people to understand. And maybe it's just the drive when you identify a problem that really means a lot to you. But like when everyone thinks you're an idiot for starting this thing, you're out of college, people think you should have got a full-time job, and you're grinding it out day in and day out to try and make this thing a reality, especially when it's your first time doing it. Like, I don't know if there's anything else that you can say to that for somebody who might be listening who wants to start their own business. But I just think that thing is so hard to put your finger on, like the difference between quitting and continuing, especially at that time that you described when, you're crying and everyone thinks you're an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I think that from what I've seen, a lot of people nowadays, especially with technology, with how much it's come, people are so quick to give up. Because we, for some reason, have grown up with this idea to care so much about what other people think. When the going gets tough, we just kind of throw our hands up but I think when you experience firsthand the devastation that being told that you are inferior because of something you cannot control, and that can go into many different areas, but specifically, in the fashion industry, it's such a optically driven market. It's all about how you look, that, especially girls and guys are affected by it too. But when you see that need firsthand and you see that look on people's faces when they're being told to go to the back corner of a store, and it's like the look of just self-defeat, that for me, that's all that I needed to see. That was all the drive I needed, because I'm Italian, so we are notorious for being stubborn and we don't give up. And so maybe that has something to do with it too. But I knew that this was a problem, that maybe it was destiny that I was made to fulfill. But when you deliver a product to somebody and you see them light up because for the first time in their life, they have something that they've never had before. They have even a piece of clothing. It seems so minuscule to people, but to people who are made to feel like an outsider, and they're given something that when they put it on, it's like their whole personality opens up. It's the best feeling in the world, and that's what keeps me doing what I'm doing. Because sometimes, yes, often I felt like giving up. Often I felt like, why do I keep going when the world keeps telling me no? But then I remember that experience. I remember watching that look on that face, watching the tears roll down somebody's cheeks because they just can't find that thing that makes them feel confident, and that you can't put a price tag on that, you know? And I think to anybody looking to start a business in this industry or any industry, just remember that yes, you are one person, but the impact that you can have on somebody's life, just one person, it's when it works, it's just like it far outweighs all the sleepless nights, because you yourself have created an outlet for that person and created a solution that it's hard to explain because it's more of an experience than it is a word. But it's what keeps me going each and every day, and it keeps me waking up and still grinding it out to this day, talking to industry leaders, talking to mentors. I still have mentors that I have had for years and years and years, that there's stuff I don't know, there's stuff that I'm still learning on a daily basis. And do I always make the right decisions? No. But I've learned that through trial and error, you know? And so maybe I'm stubborn, maybe I'm crazy, but this works for me, And it's a journey that's been so rewarding in every way.
Let's talk a bit about experience on Acadium, because you mentioned mentorship there a few times. What was your experience on Acadium like? What has it been like?
Oh yeah. Geez. I mean, I've been with Acadium before, back when it was a different name. And I've done many mentorships in the past. And I just felt like it was not fulfilling the need that I needed it to. And it just was not good experiences. My mentors and I just, personality wise, oftentimes just didn't mesh well together. Work style was often different. But I decided to try it over again. I decided to try one mentorship. And I just finished it about a month and a half ago. And it was bar none the best mentorship experience I have ever had. And to get that from the person that I did has just, I'm a different person than I was 3 months ago, because the knowledge that I've gained from it, I don't know if you want specifics about the actual company I worked for or anything like that.
Yeah. Who did you work for? What did you work on?
Yeah, so I worked for a company called Looky Loops, run by Carol Chanot, I think is how you say her last name, which deals with sunglass cases, crossbody bags. She pretty much does it all. And she is amazing. I would recommend her to anybody and everybody. Anybody looking to do anything, fashion, creative, anything. I mean, I still talk to her to this day. And with her, it was like, she challenges you for sure. I mean, she definitely will hold you accountable for every action. But with her, I was given the freedom to be creative and yet still learn so much about the back end of business, about what it takes to build a website, to run a website, to learn about SEOs, to learn about, customer flow through, customer traffic, customer retention, email marketing. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But she's all I could have asked for in a mentor, because I learned so much from her and she learned so much from me, that it was like the first moment we had that first conversation on the Acadium site, I knew that this is who I needed to work with. And I think she knew it too. And within minutes, I was already starting projects with her, and we had already started that process. And if I ever had a question, within 30 minutes, I was getting a response from her. And I mean, we would make each other laugh, we would joke, we would just, it was like anything. It was just such a great experience. And I'm so glad that I took that chance the second time around. And because I've gained so much knowledge, and now I walk into a meeting with these big companies like Google and Instagram and these big marketing giants with a new sense of esteem about knowing what I'm talking about and not feeling like, I know so much about how to make it look pretty, but now I can have those conversations about maximizing SEOs for my own company, for my own website. And now they can understand the confidence that I have, and now they're more willing to work with me. And so it's just led to so many new opportunities that I wouldn't ever have had I not done this. I've gained a contact with my mentor for life. I mean, she is always there for me, and she still asks me questions, and I'm still helping her, far beyond after the mentorship even ended, because we just built such a great working relationship that it means more than just money. You can't put a monetary price tag on just the immense benefit that I've had from this relationship.
How did you two find each other? So I know you did it on Acadium, but what I mean is when we see matches like this, the thing that I'm really curious about, and I think could be helpful for people if they're listening and going through this process, is how do you find that person? Whether it's something that you do with your profile to sort of expose a part of yourself that you want the mentor to know, or a question that you ask. Was there something that you did that you think helped find the right mentor for yourself? And on the other hand, is there something that you think your mentor did to help you find her?
Yeah, I think for me, it was on my profile. I was as authentic as I possibly could be. I went in there and I said, I am looking for a fashion design related company that can help me establish base knowledge on SEOs and digital marketing. And I went through a few before. I had other interviews with other companies. But when I came across hers, and just the wording that she used, it was so, I felt like I was talking to her directly, because she wrote about how she had this accessories company that she started as a one woman business, which I connected to because I started mine as one person. And that she started, I believe, around the same time I started mine. And she was looking for the exact same things that I was looking to learn. And so, I wasn't expecting much when I sent the message out, because, when I sent that initial request, I wrote about my experience. We were very upfront with what we expected. My message essentially stated, hello, I also am a one-man business, really looking for a mentor in the field that you are in. And I feel that we would both mutually benefit each other. And this is why, because I have experience website building, I have experience running a website, and sent that off to her. And within maybe a day, I got a message back, and she asked if we could meet up over, a FaceTime call. And that's where it started. And then once we met each other, it was like a match made in heaven, because it was like the first joke, you know, and she has kids and that are all grown. And so we just got to know each other so well through that first call. And I knew what she needed from me. She knew what I needed from her. And we molded this work relationship around that. And within maybe 10 minutes, she offered, hey, would you like to do this program? And, she was very upfront about, this is what I need. This is what you'd be doing the first week. We designated a meeting time from that. And it just went off from there. So I think when you are looking for a mentor, and even the other way around, if you are a mentor looking for a mentee, just be as authentic as you can and outline what it is that your expectations are. Because I think often, especially if you're doing this for the first time as a mentee, it's easy to get intimidated because you feel like you're talking to these Goliath companies with people who are so well established in the field that just take that chance, send that message, because you never know those relationships that you'll develop. And I think the more authentic that you are and really pinpointing what it is that you need and what it is that you want helps foster that relationship.
I think that's really helpful. We hear this time and time again with good matches on Acadium. It's about being really upfront with what you want to work on and sticking to it as you look for the mentor. And for the apprentice, being very clear about what the expectations are for the apprenticeship. What can you mentor somebody on? It's not just a matter of what you need help with on your business. Like, you need to be able to provide some feedback. And if there's alignment on that, beyond that, I mean, it sounds like with you and your mentor, there were all these things that went beyond just that. And that, I think, is something that you can write about in your profile to show people. Mm-hmm. You could sort of carve off a piece of yourself and stick it there so that people know it. You put the important ones there, and then you just have to have the conversation and see if it's a fit. And it sounds like it was pretty immediate for you too. Once you were in the apprenticeship, what helped the two of you make sure that it was a success the whole way through? Because it's not a small thing. It's 3 months. And it sounds like the two of you worked on all sorts of different things. And these apprenticeships are fully remote. So it's not easy to manage that. I think, we at Acadium try to help, but a lot of it's just the two of you figuring out what works best. So what worked for the two of you?
First and foremost was communication, because I was upfront with her from the get-go about previous experiences that I'd had with other mentors, where if I had a question, I would get a response 2-3 weeks later. And by that time, it was already too late. So I went into that telling her, if I have a question and if we are going to make this work, we need to be able to be available. Within reason, not 24/7, but, we established a specific meeting day, and there was a time difference. She's on one side of the country. I'm sort of in the middle. So, accounting for that as well. And I think that, it's hard to gauge at the get-go because you don't know that person. So, you as a mentor almost have to take that chance with the apprentice, just like the apprentice has to take that chance with the mentor. But we knew within that first meeting week what was going to work, so just for us, we did it on Mondays. where at a specific time we would get on for an hour and we would talk just like you and I are about, the projects we'd done over the last week, goals for the next meeting time. We were constantly emailing back and forth throughout the week. So, for example, if she needed me to reword some of her product postings, before Monday, we'd already been emailing almost every day or calling or texting. Hey, does this sound right? Does this, is this what you want? Because ultimately this is her brand. So this is her name. And so that's kind of how we did it. So communication was by far the most important. Two, I think that our personalities just clicked because we were both so business orientated about learning and about sharing the information that we knew that, that was really key for us as well, is we just so happened to have two personalities. I was definitely the more artistic one, whereas she's definitely the more logical, business-minded one. So when it came to figuring out projects, I was able to bring my artistic flair with me to create product listings or word things or help her with her website that made it aesthetically what she wanted it to be, while she was teaching me about how to maximize searches on search engines, which I didn't know anything about at that time. I knew a little bit, but we just kind of brought our two worlds together in a way that allowed me to have the freedom to express myself artistically, but still be within a constraint of living up to her name and living up to her brand. And I think that was appreciated by both, So I think those were the two biggest ones. I think work ethic was probably the third most important, because she was tough. I'm not going to lie. She knew what she wanted. She knew what she was going to get. And there was no, meeting her half. There was no doing it half-assed. Either you're going to do it right the first time. Yes, if you have questions, ask me. But I mean, she knew. She was, very forthcoming about what her expectations of each week. And I still have my notebook that was notes from every week that I would take. She would send me an email of what she expected the following week. And, anytime I had a question, just reach out to her. So by the time we came to that next Monday meeting, we had spreadsheets. We were looking at diagrams. We were looking at drawings. We were everything. So, which was nice because we both knew what we were going to get into the next week. It wasn't just dead silence on a video camera. It was, I know we talked about this last week. Here's what we're going to talk about now, and let's get into it. So we maximized that hour every week. And it was just that for 3 months. There was never a lapse of, I don't really feel like doing it this week. Of course, with the current situation in society, that had a little bit of an impact. But we still maintained communication. If there were weeks where we couldn't meet face to face, we were still emailing back and forth. So there was no lapse. There was no weeks where we didn't talk,
How would you say, and you may have already answered this question, how would you say that Acadium, this experience specifically, helped you the most as an entrepreneur? You really strike me as the kind of person, through all these things we've talked about, as someone who's just constantly looking to learn. You've got this project, you're on this mission, and you're looking to pick up as much as you can that's going to contribute to that thing. And you're willing to put in the time. Mm-hmm. The Acadium thing is not a small commitment. And I think a lot of people that we see doing apprenticeships, they're looking to get a job. They're looking to maybe start their freelancing career. And for you, you already have a job. You're working on your business. You're just looking to add skills an experience that's going to maybe increase the probability of success for that thing that you're working on, for solving that problem that you're trying to solve. How did Acadium help you do that? How did you know that this kind of experience, this kind of investment was going to contribute to that goal?
Well, first and foremost, I think the important thing about Acadium is it puts you in contact with people you may not normally ever see, because a lot of mentors and maybe the apprentices don't even live in the same area. So had I not been on the Acadium site, I never would have met Carol. I wouldn't even have known anything about her company. So it creates this interesting platform where you kind of are able to put your feelers out, so to speak, to so many different people on anywhere in the world, really. That so it opens you up to people that, or experiences or situations that I'm not going to be able to find here in my city. And then also, when it works, it really, for me, like you said, yes, I already have a business, but I think Acadium offered this ability to kind of fill in the gaps of, I knew how to make a website pretty. I knew how to make it aesthetically pleasing. But beyond that, I wanted to learn, okay, what does it take to make the SEO successful? What is it going to take to kind of learn the back door of how I built this website, but how do I keep the data? How do I, the numbers? I didn't know much about that. I didn't know about things like Shopify that show you, how you're optimizing your searches on major sites. I didn't know anything about that. That's what I wanted to learn. And I think within the human experience, you should always be striving to learn. I think if you're at a point where you no longer are learning anything, you're in trouble, because especially in the modern business world, there's always things to learn. There's always this changing demographic. There's a changing landscape of new technology, of new ideas. And so for me, and for anybody who's looking to run a successful business, it's all about optimizing your time. It's about absorbing as much as you can, because if you do that, you're going to be able to offer a service or a product or solve a solution or a need in a way that people who aren't willing to do that work aren't going to be able to, which is going to set you apart, which is where your customer retention is going to come from. Because people are going to now understand that this company, like mine, goes beyond just simply offering a piece of clothing. For example, not only am I creating the garment, but I'm getting to know you. I'm getting to know what it is that you need. And I'm always learning about new design programs. I'm learning about new ways to even sketch a design, because for me, I want to be as authentic and transparent as possible. That's just how I like to run my business. So, learning new ways to even draw or illustrate, because for me, I really like to hand sketch my stuff, but that takes a lot more time. And so learning on a Wacom tablet how to sketch and how to illustrate that while I'm talking to that person, they can see it instantly. They can see colors. They can see, okay, how is this going to look? And so I think that just you have to be open to just absorbing as much as you can, because even the biggest fashion houses, even the biggest companies in the world, they still have to learn. Because if you get to a point where you don't, you're going to fall behind. and then these other companies are they're going to jump ahead of you. So, and that's something I've always done my whole life. Even in college and school, I was always a big book kid. I always had my nose in a book. And I was also on sports teams. I was also on the National Honor Society, doing community activism work, doing all sorts of stuff, because I guess I've always just had that drive to just learn. And I think it's so fascinating to learn about anything. I'm not a big anime person, but I'm learning that whole world, and I'm learning, and that helps me relate to people, on a different level than just a business transaction. And so that's I think that's key.
I think that's a good note to end it on, man. It's a good message. Appreciate you taking the time today, sharing your story,
Of course.
sharing some thoughts about Acadium, and sharing some advice for people.
Of course. Anytime. Happy
Awesome.
to do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew. We'll talk to you later.